His lawyer leaned in and whispered 5 words. Just 5. And Vincent's face. That smug, self-satisfied face I'd stared at across the breakfast table for 15 years went completely white. His hands started trembling. The papers he'd been so eager to sign were shaking like leaves in a storm. And me, for the first time in 3 years, I smiled. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning because you need to understand how we got here. How a woman everyone thought had lost her mind actually played the longest, most patient game of her life. My name is Alexis Dunst. I'm 34 years old and until 3 months ago, I was married to Vincent Mercer. 15 years of marriage. That's longer than most Hollywood relationships, longer than some small countries have existed, and definitely longer than my patience should have lasted. But I'm a stubborn woman. I get it from my grandmother. I met Vincent when I was 17. I'd graduated high school early, not because I was some genius, but because I was practical and motivated and really wanted to get out of my parents' house. I got a job at Henderson and Price law firm as a file clerk. Minimum wage, maximum paper cuts, but it was mine. By 18, I'd worked my way up to legal assistant. I was good with detail, good with numbers, good with keeping my mouth shut and my eyes open. Vincent was 24 when we met at a client event. Charming, ambitious, full of dreams about building a real estate empire. He talked about the future like it was already his, like success was just waiting for him to show up and claim it. He said he was going to build something incredible. I said I'd help him file the paperwork. Romance, right? We got married when I was 19. Tyler came along when I was 20. I kept working at the law firm part-time while raising our son, building up my 401k, saving every spare dollar. My grandmother always said a woman should have her own money, not secret money. She'd clarify, just her own, something nobody could take. At 23, Vincent's business finally took off. He asked me to quit the law firm and help him full-time. He needed someone to manage the books, handle clients, coordinate with contractors, someone he could trust completely. So I became his unpaid everything: bookkeeper, office manager, client liaison, interior decorator for model homes, marketing coordinator, event planner. I did it all while raising Tyler, managing our household, and somehow keeping everyone fed and reasonably happy. My official title was wife. My unofficial title was everything else. For 11 years, I poured myself into building Vincent's dream. And for 11 years, he got the credit, the awards, the recognition. At every industry event, I was Vincent's wife. At every celebration, he thanked his team, his mentors, his vision, but somehow never quite got around to thanking. Somewhere along the way, things shifted. He started making decisions without consulting me, started staying late for work more and more often, started criticizing little things, the way I dressed, the meals I cooked, my lack of ambition. I was running his entire back office for free while raising his son and keeping his life organized. But sure, not ambitious enough. Then 3 months ago, he dropped the bomb. He came home on a Tuesday evening. I was making dinner, his favorite actually, because I'm apparently a glutton for unappreciated effort. He sat me down at the kitchen table with this look on his face. Not sad, not apologetic, just businesslike. I want a divorce, he said. And then I want the house, the cars, the business, everything. You can keep Tyler, he said, it like he was ordering from a menu. I'll have the assets. Hold the child. Thanks. Keep Tyler like our 15-year-old son was a leftover pizza, like he was an inconvenience being graciously allowed to stay with me. I just stared at him. 15 years of marriage, and this was how it ended at our kitchen table between the salt shaker and the butter dish, like I was just another item he was discarding. What I didn't know in that moment, what I wouldn't find out until later, was that Vincent had been planning this for months. He already had a lawyer, Harold Whitfield, expensive and experienced. He'd been building his exit strategy while I was meal prepping and scheduling his dentist appointments. I'd been blindsided by a man I'd trusted with everything. The next day, his mother showed up. Lorraine Mercer, a woman who had treated me like the help for 15 years, arrived with her perfectly styled hair and her perfectly practiced sympathy face. She patted my hand and told me I should have tried harder to keep him happy. Men have needs, dear, she said, like she was explaining something complicated to a slow child. Lorraine's advice on marriage was always fascinating, considering her husband spent 7 days a week on the golf course, specifically to avoid being in the same room as her. But sure, I was the problem. That first week was a blur. Vincent moved me to the guest room. He had documents drawn up, settlements proposed, timelines established. Everything was moving so fast, and I felt like I was drowning. Everyone saw a woman whose world had just collapsed, a wife being thrown away after 15 years of service, a victim who didn't see it coming. But here's the thing. What Vincent didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd found something 3 years ago, something buried in his own financial records, something he thought was hidden forever. And I'd been quietly, patiently preparing ever since. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single comment. Thank you. Back to the disaster. Within a week of the announcement, Vincent had completely taken control. The guest room became my permanent residence in what used to be our home. My closet shrank from a walk-in to 2 small sections. He graciously allowed me to keep. The message was clear. This isn't your house anymore. Within 2 weeks, he started bringing her around. Brittany Sawyer, 27 years old, worked at his company. Of course, she did. She had that Instagram perfect look, blonde highlights, perfect nails, yoga pants that cost more than my weekly grocery. She walked into my kitchen like she owned it, wore my apron, my grandmother's apron, while making smoothies in my blender. She was younger than my marriage, younger than my favorite handbag, but she made amazing smoothies. So I guess that's something. Vincent paraded her around like a trophy. They'd sit on my couch, watch my television, eat off my plates. He'd put his arm around her right in front of me like I was furniture, like I'd already disappeared. The humiliation escalated daily. First, he canceled my personal credit card. We need to separate finances, he said like he was being reasonable. Then the joint card. Then he suggested I should probably find somewhere else to stay while we sorted things out. My own home. And I was being asked to leave. Lorraine came over to help me pack. And by help, I mean she went through my belongings and decided what I deserved to keep. Old clothes, fine. Family photos, some of them. My grandmother's recipe box. She hesitated on that one like she was considering claiming it for herself. What I was not allowed to take. Any jewelry Vincent had bought me over 15 years. Any furniture I'd picked out. Anything of value. Those were marital assets, Lorraine explained. And Vincent was entitled to them. She packed my things in garbage bags. Not boxes. Garbage bags. Like I was trash. Being taken out. Through all of this, I had one person I thought I could trust. Diane Holloway. We'd been friends since high school. 20 years of friendship through boyfriends and breakups and babies and everything in between. She was the first person I called after Vincent's announcement. She was so supportive, always checking in, always asking how I was holding up, always ready to listen. She'd come over with wine and let me cry on her shoulder. She told me I deserved better. She told me Vincent was making a huge mistake, but something felt off. Little things. At first, Vincent seemed to know my plans before I made them. When I mentioned to Diane that I was thinking about fighting for the house, Tyler came home the next day saying Dad told him it wouldn't work. When I told Diane I was looking at apartments in a specific neighborhood, Vincent made a comment about that exact area being too expensive for me. Then it clicked. Looking back, I should have seen it years ago. The way Diane always lit up when Vincent walked into the room. The way she'd compliment him just a little too much, laugh at his jokes just a little too hard. She always asked about him first whenever we talked. How's Vincent? How's the business? Is Vincent happy? She'd been carrying a torch for my husband for 15 years. And Vincent, because he collected admirers, like some people collect stamps, knew exactly how to use it. He made her feel special, important, not like other women. He probably implied they'd get together after the divorce. Gave her just enough hope to keep her loyal. My best friend was his spy. 20 years of friendship sold out for some flirting and empty promises. At least charge more, Diane. But the worst part wasn't Vincent, wasn't Lorraine, wasn't even Diane. The worst part was Tyler. My son saw everything. The girlfriend, the grandmother packing my bags, the way his father looked at me like I was nothing. And Vincent was working on him, dripping poison in his ear day after day. Your mom is making this difficult. I just want everyone to be happy. She's the one dragging this out. I'm trying to be fair, but she won't cooperate. Tyler started pulling away from me. Not angry exactly, just distant, confused. He didn't know who to believe, and his father was very, very convincing. I could lose the house. I could lose the money. I could lose everything I'd spent 15 years building. But watching my son look at me like I was the problem, that was the knife. That was the wound that actually bled. I hired a lawyer, Nina Castellano, recommended by my old firm, 52 years old, sharp as a razor. Absolutely no tolerance for nonsense. She reviewed my situation and laid out the battle plan. You helped build this business, she said. You're entitled to half of everything. The house, the company, the accounts. We fight. I looked at her for a long moment. What if I don't want to fight? Ness stared at me like I'd started speaking another language, like I'd suggested we send Vincent a thank you card and a fruit basket. She thought I was broken, depressed, too beaten down to stand up for myself.